Lisa Rodriguez had been working the night shift at St. Mary's Hospital for 6 years, used to patients mumbling in their sleep during recovery. But when the unconscious man in room 312 started reciting what sounded like IP addresses and server codes in his delirium, Lisa's former life as a cybercrime detective kicked in. What she was hearing wasn't random fever talk. It was the technical blueprint for a massive cyberattack that would cripple the city's power grid in 48 hours. What happened next would prove that sometimes the most critical battles against crime are fought not in police stations or courtrooms, but in hospital hallways at 3 a.m. Detective Lisa Rodriguez had been one of the NYPD's most successful cybercrime investigators for 15 years. She'd taken down international hacking rings, stopped multi-million-dollar fraud schemes, and helped develop protocols that became standard practice for digital forensics across law enforcement. Her specialty was behavioral digital analysis, the ability to understand not just how cybercrimes were committed, but why. She could read the psychological patterns behind code, identify the personality traits of hackers through their digital signatures, and predict their next moves with uncanny accuracy. Lisa had been the lead investigator on Operation Digital Storm, a 2-year investigation into a sophisticated cybercriminal network that was targeting critical infrastructure systems across the United States. Power grids, water treatment facilities, hospital networks, all had been probed and potentially compromised by a group calling themselves the Collective. After months of careful investigation, Lisa had identified the network's leader, Dr. Alexander Volkov, a brilliant computer scientist who'd been developing cyber warfare tools for hostile foreign governments. She'd traced his digital footprints, mapped his network, and built an airtight case that would take down the entire operation. The arrest operation should have been routine. Lisa had coordinated with federal agencies, secured all necessary warrants, and planned a simultaneous takedown of multiple targets. But someone had leaked the operation details, and when law enforcement arrived at their locations, they found empty safe houses and wiped computer systems. Worse, the Collective had activated a retaliatory attack that shut down power to 3 hospitals, causing the death of 7 patients whose life support systems had failed during the blackout. The subsequent investigation revealed that the leak had come from within the NYPD's cybercrime unit. Someone with access to operational details had warned the Collective, giving them time to escape and launch their revenge attack. Lisa wasn't suspected of being the mole, but her case had been compromised. Every piece of evidence she'd gathered was potentially tainted. Every source she'd developed was potentially blown. Years of careful work had been destroyed overnight. "We can't use you on cybercrime cases anymore," her captain had explained during a tense meeting. "Too much exposure, too much risk. We're reassigning you to patrol duty." After 15 years as a detective, the thought of returning to patrol work felt like professional death. Lisa chose to leave the force instead, taking a buyout package and trying to figure out what to do with her life. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd spent her career fighting digital criminals who attacked critical infrastructure, and now she was working in a hospital, one of the very systems she'd tried to protect. Becoming a nurse at 38 hadn't been part of Lisa's life plan, but it turned out to be exactly what she needed. The accelerated nursing program took 18 months of intensive study, but Lisa approached it with the same methodical dedication she'd once applied to tracking cybercriminals. Working at St. Mary's Hospital gave her a sense of purpose she'd lost when she left the police force. Instead of analyzing digital crimes after they'd already caused damage, she was helping people heal, providing comfort during their most vulnerable moments, and making a real difference in individual lives. The night shift suited her perfectly. The hospital was quieter, the pace less frantic, and she could focus on patient care without the constant interruptions of day shift bureaucracy. Lisa had always been a night person anyway. Most cybercrime happened after dark, and she'd spent countless late nights tracking digital predators through the dark web. Her colleagues appreciated her calm demeanor during emergencies, her attention to detail with medications, and her ability to stay focused during long, difficult shifts. They had no idea that her analytical skills came from years of investigating complex criminal networks, or that her emotional resilience had been forged in the fires of high-stakes law enforcement. Lisa told herself she was done with crime fighting, done with the stress and danger of police work, done with the cynical worldview that came from seeing humanity's worst impulses played out in digital form. She was healing people now, not hunting criminals. But old habits die hard, and when you've spent 15 years listening for lies, recognizing patterns, and spotting anomalies, you can't simply turn those skills off. The unconscious man was brought to St. Mary's Emergency Department on a Wednesday evening, victim of what appeared to be a serious car accident on the FDR Drive. He'd been driving alone when his vehicle struck a concrete barrier at high speed, leaving him with a severe head injury and multiple fractures. The man carried no identification, but his belongings suggested he was probably a tech worker. Expensive laptop, multiple smartphones, and what appeared to be specialized computer equipment that the paramedics hadn't recognized. Dr. Sarah Kim, the attending physician, had stabilized him and admitted him to the ICU with a traumatic brain injury. The patient, listed as John Doe until his identity could be determined, was unconscious but stable, requiring round-the-clock monitoring for signs of brain swelling or other complications. Lisa was assigned to his care during her night shifts, checking his vital signs, adjusting his medications, and documenting his progress. For the first 2 days, he was completely unresponsive, showing no signs of consciousness beyond basic brainstem reflexes. Then on Friday night, he started talking. It began as incoherent mumbling, the kind of random vocalizations that brain injury patients sometimes exhibited during recovery. Lisa had heard it dozens of times before. Fragments of memories, pieces of conversations, nonsensical combinations of words that meant nothing to anyone listening. But something about this patient's mumbling was different. 192-168-1, port 443, SSL handshake failure. He whispered, his voice barely audible above the hum of the ventilator. Lisa paused in her medication preparation. Those weren't random words. They were technical terms related to computer networking. Buffer overflow, kernel exploit, root access gained. The patient continued, his eyes still closed, his body motionless except for the slight movement of his lips. Lisa's 15 years of cybercrime investigation experience kicked in immediately. She recognized the terminology, networking protocols, security vulnerabilities, hacking techniques. The patient wasn't having random delusions. He was reciting technical procedures. Lisa pulled up a chair beside his bed and began listening more carefully, taking notes on her phone as the patient continued his unconscious recitation. Primary target, power grid SCADA systems, authentication bypass at substation level. Lisa's blood ran cold. SCADA systems controlled critical infrastructure, power plants, water treatment facilities, transportation networks. An authentication bypass would allow an attacker to take control of these systems. Timeline confirmed. Friday, 0300 hours. Simultaneous activation across 7 metropolitan areas. Friday. That was tomorrow night. Lisa looked at the unconscious man with new eyes. His expensive equipment, his lack of identification, his technical knowledge. This wasn't a random accident victim. This was someone involved in planning a cyberattack on critical infrastructure, and based on his mumbled timeline, the attack was scheduled to begin in less than 24 hours. Lisa faced an impossible dilemma. She had no proof beyond the ramblings of an unconscious patient, no official authority to investigate, and no way to know if anyone would believe her even if she reported what she'd heard. But she also had 15 years of experience investigating exactly these types of cases, and every instinct she'd developed told her this was real. Lisa began by researching her patient's belongings more carefully. The hospital had secured his personal effects in a locked cabinet, following standard procedure for unidentified patients. Using her access as his assigned nurse, Lisa examined his equipment with the trained eye of a former cybercrime detective. What she found confirmed her worst fears. Military-grade encryption devices, network penetration tools, and detailed schematics of power grid substations for 7 major cities. This wasn't the equipment of a legitimate IT professional. It was the arsenal of a sophisticated cyber terrorist. Lisa used her smartphone to photograph the evidence, careful not to disturb anything that might be needed for an official investigation. She recognized some of the tools from cases she'd worked during her police career, equipment typically used by state-sponsored hacking groups or international cybercriminal organizations. The patient's laptop was password protected, but Lisa noticed something that made her heart race. A small external hard drive connected via USB, and it was actively running. The device was encrypted, but its activity lights showed it was performing some kind of automated function. Lisa realized she might be looking at a dead man's switch, an automated system designed to trigger the attack if the patient didn't check in at regular intervals. If he remained unconscious past a certain deadline, the attack would launch automatically. She needed help, but she also needed credibility. No one would take the word of a nurse who claimed to be a former detective, especially not based on the mumblings of an unconscious patient. Lisa made a decision that would test every skill she'd learned in 15 years of law enforcement. She was going to conduct her own investigation and gather enough evidence to convince authorities to take action. Over the next 12 hours, Lisa used her knowledge of cybercrime investigation to build a case. She couldn't access official law enforcement databases, but she could use open-source intelligence techniques to research her patient and his activities. Using reverse image searches on photos of his equipment, Lisa identified several pieces as having been used in previous cyber attacks attributed to the Collective, the same group she'd been investigating when her police career ended. The realization hit her like a physical blow. This patient might be connected to Dr. Alexander Volkov, the mastermind who'd escaped during Operation Digital Storm. The attack her unconscious patient was mumbling about could be the revenge operation the Collective had been planning for 3 years. Lisa's research revealed that power grid vulnerabilities in the 7 cities the patient had mentioned had all been probed within the past 6 months. Cybersecurity firms had reported suspicious activities, but no one had connected them as part of a coordinated campaign. The timeline was becoming clear. The Collective had spent 3 years planning a massive retaliatory attack against the United States infrastructure, targeting the very systems Lisa had once been tasked to protect. And she was the only person who knew it was about to happen. With less than 8 hours until the patient's mumbled timeline, Lisa made the most difficult decision of her life. She was going to contact her former colleagues in law enforcement, despite the personal and professional risks. Lisa called Detective Maria Santos, her former partner in the NYPD cybercrime unit. Maria had been one of the few people who'd remained supportive after Operation Digital Storm failed. "Lisa, Jesus, it's been 3 years. What's going on?" "Maria, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I think I've stumbled onto something connected to the Collective." "Lisa, you're a nurse now. How could you possibly—" "I'm treating a patient who was in a car accident, but I think it was staged. He's been unconscious for 3 days, but he's been reciting technical details about a cyber attack scheduled to begin in 7 hours. The silence on the other end of the line stretched uncomfortably long. "Lisa, I know the past few years have been hard, but—" "Maria, he's mentioned SCADA systems, power grid vulnerabilities, and 7 metropolitan areas. This is exactly the kind of infrastructure attack the Collective threatened after we disrupted their network." "Even if that's true, what do you want me to do? Launch an investigation based on the fever dreams of an unconscious patient? Do you have any idea how that would sound?" Lisa had anticipated this reaction, which is why she'd spent hours documenting every piece of evidence she could gather.
"I photographed his equipment. Military-grade encryption devices, network penetration tools, infrastructure schematics. Maria, this isn't random. This is a coordinated attack, and it's going to happen tonight." "Send me everything you have," Maria said finally. "But Lisa, if this turns out to be nothing, I'll go back to being a nurse and never contact you again. But if I'm right, and we do nothing, people are going to die." Lisa's evidence package reached Maria Santos at 6:15 p.m., less than 9 hours before the patient's mumbled attack timeline. Maria immediately forwarded it to the FBI's cybercrime task force, where it landed on the desk of Special Agent Jennifer Park. Agent Park had been following leads related to the collective for 2 years, trying to track down the surviving members of the network that had escaped during Operation Digital Storm. When she saw Lisa's photographs and analysis, she recognized several pieces of equipment that had been used in previous attacks. More importantly, she recognized the methodology. The infrastructure targeting, the multi-city coordination, the sophisticated technical approach, it all matched the psychological profile of Dr. Alexander Volkov. Agent Park made a crucial decision. Even if there was only a 10% chance Lisa was right, the potential consequences were too severe to ignore. At 7:30 p.m., FBI cybersecurity teams began monitoring the power grid systems in the 7 cities Lisa's patient had mentioned. They found something that confirmed her worst fears: subtle infiltration attempts that had been ongoing for weeks, gradually mapping vulnerabilities and establishing backdoor access points. The attack infrastructure was already in place. The only thing preventing its activation was the automated check-in system on the patient's external hard drive. At 8:45 p.m., FBI teams raided 3 locations in the New York area based on digital forensics analysis of the patient's equipment. They found the collective's operational headquarters, complete with detailed attack plans, target lists, and evidence linking the operation to foreign state sponsors. But the most crucial discovery was the identity of Lisa's unconscious patient, Dr. Alexander Volkov himself, the mastermind of the collective, who had been coordinating the attack from his hospital bed through automated systems until his car accident had left him unconscious.
With 2 hours remaining until the scheduled attack, FBI cyber specialists worked frantically to disarm the automated systems that would trigger the infrastructure assault. The dead man's switch was more sophisticated than they'd anticipated, requiring both digital keys and biometric authentication from Dr. Volkov. That's when Lisa became crucial to the operation in a way no one had expected. "We need him conscious," Agent Park explained to Dr. Kim and the medical team, "just long enough to provide biometric authentication to shut down the attack systems." "That's medically inadvisable," Dr. Kim protested. "His brain injury is still healing. Forcing consciousness could cause permanent damage." "Doctor," Agent Park said grimly, "if we don't shut down these systems in the next 90 minutes, 7 major cities are going to lose power simultaneously. Hospitals, airports, emergency services, everything will go dark. The casualties could be in the thousands." Lisa found herself in the impossible position of helping to revive a patient she'd been caring for, knowing that consciousness might harm him, but also knowing that his unconsciousness might harm thousands of others. Using carefully administered stimulants and Dr. Kim's expertise, the medical team was able to bring Dr. Volkov to partial consciousness at 11:23 p.m., 37 minutes before his automated attack was scheduled to begin. "Dr. Volkov," Agent Park said as soon as his eyes opened, "you need to provide biometric authentication to shut down the attack systems." Volkov's eyes focused slowly, taking in the FBI agents, the medical equipment, and finally settling on Lisa. "You," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "You're the detective, Rodriguez, the one who almost caught us 3 years ago." "I'm a nurse now," Lisa replied. "But yes, I was the detective, and I'm asking you to stop this attack." "Why would I do that?" "Because you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison either way. But if you stop this attack, thousands of innocent people won't suffer for your revenge." Dr. Volkov stared at her for a long moment, perhaps recognizing the irony that the detective who'd once hunted him was now the nurse caring for him. At 11:56 p.m., 4 minutes before the scheduled attack, Dr. Volkov provided the biometric authentication needed to shut down the automated systems. 7 power grids remained operational. Thousands of lives were saved, and the collective's 3-year revenge plot ended not in a cyber war, but in a hospital room with a former detective turned nurse, talking a terrorist out of mass destruction. The investigation that followed revealed the full scope of the collective's operations, a 3-year campaign to infiltrate critical infrastructure systems across the United States with the ultimate goal of causing widespread chaos and loss of life in retaliation for Operation Digital Storm. Dr. Volkov's unconscious rambling had been the result of his traumatic brain injury interfering with his normally careful operational security. In his delirium, he'd recited technical details and timelines that he would never have revealed while fully conscious. Lisa's unique combination of cybercrime expertise and medical access had created the perfect storm of circumstances needed to detect and prevent the attack. No one else would have recognized the technical significance of his mumbling, and no one else would have had the investigative skills to piece together the evidence. The FBI offered Lisa a position as a cybercrime consultant, allowing her to return to law enforcement while maintaining her nursing career. The NYPD wanted her back as a detective with full rank restoration and a public commendation. Lisa declined both offers. "I'm exactly where I need to be," she told Agent Park during her final debriefing. "This hospital is where people heal, where lives are saved, where good things happen. That's what I want to be part of now." But Lisa did make one change to her routine. She began working with hospital IT security to improve cybersecurity protocols, helping ensure that medical facilities would be better protected against the kinds of attacks she'd once investigated. 2 years later, Lisa Rodriguez had become St. Mary's Hospital's unofficial cybersecurity consultant, helping develop protocols that other medical facilities adopted nationwide. Her unique combination of medical knowledge and cybercrime expertise made her invaluable for protecting critical healthcare infrastructure. Dr. Volkov was serving multiple life sentences in federal prison, where he spent his time writing academic papers about cybersecurity, ironic contributions to the field he'd once tried to destroy. The collective's network had been completely dismantled, with dozens of arrests and the seizure of critical infrastructure, attack tools that were turned over to defensive cybersecurity teams. Lisa continued working night shifts at St. Mary's, finding peace in the quiet rhythm of hospital care, but now she also taught cybersecurity awareness to healthcare workers, helping them recognize the digital threats that could endanger both their systems and their patients. "The thing about cybercrime," Lisa explained to a group of nursing students, "is that it's ultimately about people. Technology is just the tool. Understanding human behavior, why people commit crimes, how they make mistakes, what motivates them to change, that's the real key to both investigating crimes and preventing them." And sometimes, she added, the most important investigations don't happen in police stations or FBI offices. They happen wherever someone with the right knowledge is paying attention when something doesn't seem right. 5 years after the night that changed everything, Lisa Rodriguez was training new nurses in the same ICU where she'd discovered Dr. Volkov's unconscious confession. The room that had once housed a cyber terrorist was now a teaching space where future healthcare workers learned to recognize when patients needed help. "Always listen to what your patients are telling you," Lisa instructed the students. "Even when they're unconscious. Even when they seem to be talking nonsense. Even when you think it's just medication effects or brain injury. Sometimes people reveal things in their most vulnerable moments that they would never share when they're in control." One of the students raised her hand. "Nurse Rodriguez, what if what they're saying doesn't seem medical? What if it sounds like something else entirely?" Lisa smiled, thinking of that night when technical mumblings had revealed a plot to attack critical infrastructure. Then you use every skill you have, every experience you've gained, and every instinct you've developed to figure out what it means. Because you never know when your unique combination of knowledge might be exactly what's needed to help someone, or to help a lot of people. "The most important thing," she continued, "is to remember that healing comes in many forms. Sometimes you heal someone's body, sometimes you heal their spirit, and sometimes, if you're very lucky and very skilled, you get to heal the damage that others tried to cause." Dr. Alexander Volkov had never fully recovered from his brain injury, spending his remaining years in a special medical facility within the federal prison system. But in a strange twist of fate, he'd become something of a reformed figure, helping cybersecurity researchers understand the psychology of cyber terrorists and developing defensive strategies against the kinds of attacks he'd once planned. Lisa visited him once, 2 years after his arrest, as part of a FBI research project on cybercriminal rehabilitation. "You saved my life," Volkov said during their brief meeting, "both literally, in the hospital, and figuratively, by giving me a chance to stop the attack. I've had time to think about what I was trying to do, about the people who would have suffered." "That's what nurses do," Lisa replied. "We take care of people, even when they've made terrible choices. Healing isn't just about medicine. It's about giving people the opportunity to be better than their worst moments." Lisa Rodriguez had learned that sometimes the most important crimes are solved not through sophisticated investigations or high-tech surveillance, but through the simple act of listening carefully when someone needs to tell the truth.
And sometimes the most important healing happens not through medical procedures or pharmaceutical interventions, but through human compassion applied at exactly the right moment, by exactly the right person, with exactly the right combination of skills. The night shift continued. The hospital hummed with quiet activity, and Lisa Rodriguez kept watch, protecting both individual patients and the broader community, one night at a time. If this story moved you, remember that healthcare workers are often our first line of defense against threats we never see coming. Their training, experience, and dedication protect us in ways that go far beyond traditional medical care. Have you ever noticed something that seemed out of place and decided to investigate? Sometimes our past experiences and professional training prepare us for moments we never expected. Share your story in the comments below. Where are you watching from today? Drop a comment and remember, the person taking care of you in your most vulnerable moments might have incredible skills and experiences that could change the world.